Welcome into the Vols Podcast. I am Ben McKee, and I'm joined by Will Heflin on this Wednesday, January 21st edition of the podcast. Not only is it the January 21st edition, it is the very first edition of 2026 of the 2026 season. And we had Ross Kivett join us here on the podcast to celebrate the return of the Vols Podcast. Ross is going to join myself in the second segment. You can catch that. Will unfortunately had real life things pop up, had to tend to a meeting at our scheduled time with Ross. So Will had to bail last minute. So you're stuck with myself and Ross going back and forth. But as you will hear Ross and I discuss, Ross is going to get back on here towards the start of SEC play, before SEC play starts. So we'll get Ross back on here soon, and he and Will can go back and forth. Because according to Ross, Will was scared to show up because he was going to make him go do more PFPs, a.k.a. pitchers fielding practice, which may or may not bring back nightmares and bad memories for Mr. Heflin, because he has suffered a significant injury while doing PFPs once before. But also glad to get Will back on here. We have not recorded a Vols podcast in quite some time, certainly since the start of the new year. But the last one we did record, unfortunately, it was just me. People had to listen to me speak for like 25, 30 minutes, whatever that was. And it was just me for every bit of that 25, 30 minutes, which I imagine was absolute torture for those who stuck through it. I'm sure Sam Smith is nodding in agreement viciously as he is listening to this. But Will, good to see you, my man. You got some more flow going on back there. I'm sure you've already been on the golf course some way, somehow this morning. How are you, my friend?
I don't know what golf course you're talking about. It's 25 degrees here, but
just
first of all, happy 2026. We're getting close. We're approaching baseball season. I'm super excited to get back on the pod with you, man. It's been too long. The last time I was on with you, prior to your 30-minute monologue that you spoke of, was our reaction to Tony V leaving. So probably the busiest offseason ever in your time covering Tennessee baseball, just with what the draft means now for this program and the transfer portal that's now a thing. And then your coach leaves at the end of the fall, and then all those changes. So we've got a pretty interesting preseason buildup that we're going to start diving into today. But good to be on with you. I'm glad I was able to dodge Ross. He still scares the bejeebies out of me. No, I'm just kidding. Look forward to going back and forth with him closer to SEC play. But I'm sure you guys had a good discussion, and I'm sure we will have a good discussion. So good to be on with you. Glad you're doing well. Glad your health is good. I know everybody's still praying for you and thinking about you. And as you continue to go down this path, getting a little bit of hair back, so you look good, my man. I don't know how much is going to come back on top, but I am trying to grow mine out. I don't know how that's going, but we're testing it out. And if it doesn't look good in another month or two, then we'll just chop it all off. So,
well, your hair growth is certainly better than mine. So you can at least take your victory there, although that is not saying much. I am proud of the beard. The beard is back. I think it looks good.
It's full.
My hair, since my chemo treatments, it's come back darker. I've had 2 or 3 of my really good friends legitimately asked me if I dyed my hair because of how much darker it has come back. I don't know that I would call it black, maybe a very dark brown. I mean, it was brown to begin with, but it's a much darker brown now to where it almost does look black. So that's been certainly interesting, but no, I appreciate you saying that.
The black hoodie could be playing a role, but I mean, you've got some serious like Ryan Day level line going on with how crisp it is. So
that shout out to the wife. She's my she's my, I can't call her my barber, I guess, but she's my stylist. She's the one that takes the razor to the top of my head, and then she's done in doing that, she's now learned how to shape up my beard as well, and has gotten really good at it. So I appreciate her for making me look somewhat decent, but glad I no longer look like a cancer patient. I'm also glad I could say that out loud. I feel like I am allowed to say that, given I was a cancer patient there for a couple of months, but certainly glad to see the off season come to an end and focus on baseball. Because you mentioned how busy it was for the program, having to try and keep up with all that while I was doing chemo and trying to deal with all that. That was not fun. But I am happy to share. I don't think I've said this anywhere publicly. I have not shared it anywhere publicly, but I am in remission. So that is obviously wonderful news. I found out right before Thanksgiving that I was in remission. That was my first scan that I had post chemo. I wrapped up chemo treatment mid-October, and then I had a month before I could get scanned for whatever reason, and found out right that week before Thanksgiving that the treatment worked. Thank God, and I am in remission, and I haven't said anything publicly about it yet because there was one little box that I still needed to check with something that they did see at the time of that original scan. They did not think it was serious at the time, but needed to wait a month and a half or so, 6 to 8 weeks, to scan me again and just confirm it. And it last week did confirm that it was not anything serious. So I have not said anything publicly. So this is my first time sharing, where else better to share than right here on the Vols Podcast, that I am in remission. I appreciate your support, Will, and everybody's continued thoughts and prayers. It has meant the world, and I would not have been able to get all through that without everybody's thoughts and prayers and support. There's no doubt about that. So I really appreciate you all more than I could ever express. Words do not do justice my gratitude. It truly does not. On to baseball. We have not gotten your thoughts since that reaction podcast that we did with Jared Dickey when Josh Elander was promoted to head coach. We have not gotten your thoughts on two of your former coaches joining your former manager in San Francisco. Quentin Eberhardt, he's off to the San Francisco Giants as well. Frank Anderson, he's off to the San Francisco Giants. We have not gotten your thoughts on that. I know we are so far removed from that happening, but what do you remember your reaction being when you did find out? And I guess you take it any way you want to go with it, but how do you feel like the program will handle moving forward, I guess?
Yeah, my reaction was pretty similar for both. Sad, but also understood it. I think they both are stepping into roles that are a really good fit for them and they'll enjoy. So tough to blame them. But I think Elander's done a really good job of backfilling and making his first decisions as head honcho on who to bring on. And I'm talking about Noel, Bell, Geralman, Josh Reynolds becoming the main pitching coach now. I think Kivett will have a increased role or very similar to what he was doing before, but obviously he and Elander work well in tandem together. So I think he's put together a really good staff around him to be able to take what he learned as assistant coach and associate head coach in his 8 years with Vitello and take that plus who he's brought in and start his career as head coach on the right trajectory and just kind of keep this thing rolling. Cause that's really what you're trying to do, especially here in year one. He's got the roster in place, right? He just needed to work quickly to get the pieces around him so that he can be successful. So, Frank and Q both mean the world to me, and so grateful for their time. And actually, for how good they were at their job, it's kind of shocking that they were here as long as they were. We got lucky with Frank Anderson because he was past the point in his career where he even wanted to be a head coach, or he wouldn't have been here very long. He would have been gone after like 22, probably. And then Q did leave, took a professional job, and decided to come back. And so very fortunate for the time that we got from them. The program would not be what it is today and what it was under Vitello without both of them. So wish them both the best. Super happy for them. Stinks that they're gone. We'll see what's different in terms of philosophy under Reynolds. I'm sure there will be shades of Frank's pitching philosophies that remain, and he'll bring his new flavor, or his own flavor, which will be new to us as viewing what's going on out there on the field. So it'll be interesting. There will be some growing pains, I'm sure, but they've got the tools.
Let me throw two things at you. We're going kind of out of order here, as we love to do on the Vols podcast, because I am not a very good podcast host, but do want to get your thoughts on what you think this Tennessee baseball team needs to do over these next 3 weeks throughout preseason practice as it builds up to the preseason. What your to-do list is from afar, just watching from afar. We'll get to that, but I was able to sit down with Josh Elander for a Q&A. I've done it every year in the preseason. Obviously, had been doing it with Tony Vitello. This time around, I'm now doing it with Josh Elander, and Josh was terrific as he usually is. He's not going to pull Mike Honcho, out of his hat, I don't think, when doing interviews, but he's still a really good interview and really insightful as well. And as well as you can in coach speak, he's just kind of tells you how it is. He does not shy away, I don't think. Maybe that changes over time as he settles into a head coach role, but he gives really good answers, even if it's not the Tony Vitello magic sauce sprinkled over the answers and entertainment wise from that standpoint. But Josh sat down with me last week, and I peppered him for 25, 30 minutes. He was very gracious with his time, just reflecting on the fall. Asked him about staff changes, why he made the decision to bring in Chuck Girolamo, Craig Bell, who is with the Padres, previously was at Florida as well, how Josh Reynolds is adjusting to now being the guy as the pitching coach, why he wanted Keegan Noll as the strength coach. We also talked about several other topics, including how he feels about his pitchers heading into preseason practice and the hitters and a couple of different position battles. So I broke it up into part one and part two. Part one I posted last week. Part two I posted yesterday on Tuesday. So if you missed that, I encourage you to check it out at GoVols247.com. But do want to hit on some of the high points is what I'm getting at. And there are two things that I want to throw at you going off of what you just said about maybe seeing a tweak in philosophy here, a tweak in philosophy there. I don't think you'll see wholesale changes, especially here in year one, but you're going to see a couple of different things. And before I get into the staff roles that Josh Elander spoke to me about when I asked him who would be calling pitches, there will be one significant philosophy change right off the jump. I don't know. I don't think significant is too big of a word, but you tell me if you think I'm using too strong of a descriptive there. Is the war at the plate and the battles on the bases, defending 90 feet, holding runners on at first, at second, at third, being more intentional about slowing down the other team's base runners and running game. That was something that Josh brought up when I asked him about Chuck Girolamo coming from Florida. Florida and Tennessee obviously compete against each other every year. So I asked Josh, how beneficial is it that you're bringing in somebody to the program who has scouted you and game planned ways to take advantage of your weaknesses and try and find ways to beat you? How beneficial has that been for your program? And that led to Elander talking about how the first week that he took over as head coach, they were out there working on holding runners at second base, at first base, and giving their catchers a little bit more of an ability to throw out runners on the bases. And it's not that the previous regime completely ignored that, but that is just a tweak in style, and I'm sure it helps that Josh was a catcher, of where that is something that he really wants to emphasize is not giving away free bases. I think that's that's the best way to describe it, Will, is there were too many times in the past, the very few weaknesses that did exist. There weren't many, but some of the few flaws, and in it, they were still able to go win a national championship and have a lot of success. So it was not a glaring weakness, but at times when they did struggle, it was because they were giving up free 90s in the field. They were giving up free bases, and that has been a point of emphasis with Josh Elander early on as he has taken over as head coach.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to self scout, and I'm thinking of an example in football. Similarly, Georgia is one of the best programs in college football, right? 2024, they lead the country in drops. They don't have a good year. What do they do in the portal? They go get a couple wide receivers. Gunnar Stockton takes over at quarterback, and they have much better production from that position and less drops. Same deal here, right? Nobody's arguing that Tennessee was bad, but you're always trying to self-scout and improve. The other thing too that I think is worth noting is like you're still playing teams like Kentucky and Vanderbilt, and the SEC is a power league. It is hit home runs, throw 95, that sort of thing. But with the shift in college baseball to an older game, and the portal being what it is, teams are able to be a little bit more athletic, a little bit more baseball savvy because of their age, right? These are more physical kids, and ultimately they're better base runners, right? So I think we saw a little bit over the past couple of years, teams getting back more to the run game a little bit, right? And Tennessee was one of those teams at times when on offense. If you can get 90 feet, it's huge. So you got to be able to defend it. So a little bit of internal self-scouting, not just when you're playing, early season or midweek, or if you run into a West Coast team in postseason. Like teams in the SEC are going to run because they're fast and athletic, right? And so Tennessee needs to be able to defend that. And they were not good at it the last few years. And that was, it hurt them at times, and at other times it probably helped them because they didn't let it distract them and turn into a 2-run homer. So it's always a balancing act, but I do think that's just, Elander being a catcher certainly plays a role in it. And then, all the guys he's brought in have their own background. But the interesting part about these guys that he's brought in, and coaching's like this, right? We saw the national championship earlier this week, Indiana and Miami. Now, Cristobal and Kurt Cignetti never once crossed paths, which is interesting, but they're both from the Saban tree, right? And they had a lot of similarities. They did a little graphic and talked about those deals. And I'm sure those guys are very similar in their foundation. But Kurt Cignetti's staff, they've been together. They know each other, right? Cristobal's staff, they've been together. They know each other. They have familiarity with what their foundational principles are, like what is important to them. And so that's the thing about the guys Elander's brought in, is like he's got a history with them, whether it be TCU or whatever. And you can probably trace it all back to, I don't know, you could say Schloss or the Dave Van Horn tree, whatever you want to call it, right? But those foundational things, which they all share with Tony Vitello as well, are there, but they've all got their own flavor too. And my point is Josh was a catcher, so it's probably important to him to have his catcher have a chance to throw somebody out, which makes perfect sense. And so I think their pitchers that they're recruiting are athletic enough and smart enough to do both of those things. And so we'll see if the emphasis pays dividends right away.
Yeah, I think
long-winded answer there for you, but that pretty, I guess, full circle of the reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, no need to apologize for being long-winded. Lord knows that I am long-winded and was before I even passed the microphone back to you. But it wasn't even that it was something that was a flaw. It was just almost at times completely neglected. I mean, you talk to some former Tennessee catchers. I mean, I've talked to them. I'm sure you have as well, obviously, being their teammates. And there were frustrations about how those catchers just never had a chance to throw anybody out on base. It was rare that they had a true opportunity to throw out somebody. So it's not that it's going to become a strength all of a sudden. Maybe it does. I mean, again, Elander is a former catcher. It's going to be a point of emphasis. But I just wanted to point out that it's not going to be neglected, and I know that Tennessee fans will appreciate that, because that was certainly something that was a point of frustration at times, as to, okay, why are we not holding them a little bit better when we could be. So again, not a huge deal in terms of what it was in the past, but I wanted to bring it up just because I found it interesting, that was something that Elander pointed to right away, and talked about how that was something that they started to work on that first week that he took over the job. I did mention staff roles, and I don't think any of this is too surprising, but Josh Reynolds is going to call pitches, and it was interesting to hear Elander talk about it. I mean, that seems obvious, but Elander, because Reynolds is the pitching coach, why would he not call the pitches? But Elander sounded like he considered calling pitches, but I think he just needed, what he got around to pointing out is that he just needed to focus on being a head coach and trust his guys. I'm paraphrasing and
He did
whatnot.
call pitches when Frank was ejected.
Yep, for sure.
Which happened more than once, allegedly.
Allegedly happened more than once, him and Tony V. So he has experience doing it. He's a catcher. I'm sure he's a great pitch caller. If he were to call pitches, I'm sure Tennessee would be totally fine. But it seems like the right move there to allow your pitching coach to do so. Right, he's the one that has the relationship, the better, if that's the right way to put it, relationship with the pitcher. So Reynolds will call pitches. Elander will coach third base, will continue to coach third base. That is something that he's been adamant about wanting to continue to do, running the offense. And I heard him talk at the Big Orange Tip-Off Club on Monday, and he joked that if somebody gets thrown out, if I send somebody and they get thrown out, you can get mad at me and tweet at me. Because Lord knows when if it's 50-50, I like to send them and make them play catch. So Elander's still going to run the offense from over there in the third base coach's box, and you'll have Ross kind of leading the charge in the dugout and handling those things. But not a big surprise that Elander's going to continue to coach third base and that Reynolds is going to call pitches, but did find it noteworthy.
I'm not surprised, but with Tennessee being in the first base dugout at home, it will be an interesting dynamic for pinch hit decisions, because he'll have to either signal over or discuss before he runs out there, like, hey, if this happens, this is what we're doing. Or Ross will make those decisions. But I would imagine Elander would still be in control there. He'll just have to communicate it somehow.
Yeah. And I did misspeak. Chuck Girolman is going to run the dugout, and Kivett is going to continue to coach first base. So it is interesting. That's a great point, that because Tennessee has a first base home dugout, that will be opposite of Elander. But I guess to just be real simple, at the end of the day, he's the head coach, and I'm sure he's thinking of those moves far before they need to take place anyways. Yeah. And Tim Corbin's the one that comes to my mind in terms of thinking of head coaches who continue to coach third base. And if Corbin can do it, then Elander can certainly. Not suggesting that Corbin it's just easy to do so, and that if Corbin can do it, anybody can do it. I don't mean it like that, but if Corbin can do it at a high level, then I think it's possible for somebody else to also do it at a high level. And those things are so far planned out in terms of they already have an idea of what they want to do in different situations. I would imagine it wouldn't become an issue if I had to guess. But certainly an interesting thing to watch.
I was just thinking of the mechanics. So here's an example. It's you're on defense, you've got a guy on the bench. Let's say your first pinch hitter off the bench, and you've got a spot coming up in the order where you think, okay, maybe I want to get a left-handed bat in here if this pitcher's still on the mound. So you go tell that guy, hey, have a bat be ready to pinch hit for player X. And then he's out there coaching, same pitchers in the game. He's like, yep, let's pull the trigger. He just calls time and goes to the umpire and does the substitution on the field. That's how Corbin would do it if they were in the first base dugout on the road or something. But when they're at home, he can just, turn to his right and say, "Hey, grab a bat and go pinch it." It's different. But I've seen it done. I'm not saying it would be an issue. It's just an interesting mechanic.
The quote or the exact thing that Elander told me about Josh Reynolds calling pitches was he's going to spend the most time with those guys, and so no questions, no issues with that. Just excited for him because he's been working behind the scenes. It'll be cool for him to be able to run without the safety on anymore. So that is Elander's explanation as to why Reynolds would call pitches. And again, it's nothing shocking, right? He's the pitching coach. The vast majority of pitching coaches call pitches, so it's not surprising. But did think it was an interesting tidbit from when I did sit down with Elander for my Q&A.
We'll have to see how they manage visits. If it's always Reynolds for a visit and Elander to switch, or if it's Reynolds for both, or Elander may take a visit and not switch. I mean, I remember one, maybe two mound visits ever that Vitello did without making a switch, and they were both where he was convinced not to. He was planning to, and I think Sewell and maybe Beam one time, or Dolander, somebody like that.
I remember the Sewell one. I'm struggling to remember the other one.
Yeah, I remember the Sewell one because I said that it had never happened on air on a broadcast, and Sewell quickly texted me and reminded me that he won that debate or campaign and was able to stay in. So I can't say it never happened, but be interesting to see who walks out there for the first mound visit of the year. I would imagine they'll do it similarly.
And shout out to Camden, recently got engaged. So congratulations to Camden and
his coverage.
He outkicked his coverage for sure. Shout out to Camden. Very, very happy for him. You all had quite a few weddings this all season. The Tony Vitello era of Tennessee baseball, I think, had weddings every weekend there for like a 2-month stretch.
Probably.
Jordan Beck got married. Jarrell Ortega got married.
Jake Rucker.
Jake Rucker. There are a couple more, and I feel bad for forgetting them.
Maybe some younger guys. A couple of Vitello era guys that are currently engaged.
Billy Amick got married.
Amick, good for him.
Yep.
Good.
So maybe that was the other one that I was. If there's a former Vitello era Vol listening, and I forgot that you also got married this off season, please forgive me,
because that would be a bad look.
Well, just know I was speaking. Will Heflin was not. So there's that. But before we catch a break and get Ross Kivett in here, who is always entertaining, what are you curious to hear about this team the next couple of weeks? I thought Ross made an interesting comment when he says that he calls this team the question mark team, because he gets questions all the time about, hey, who's playing first base? Who's playing shortstop, second base? Who's playing catcher? Who's going to be pitching? Who's going to come out of the bullpen? This, that, and the other. It's just a million questions. You don't really know. I mean, who is there a single player coming back in a defined role that they were in a season ago? I mean, I assume Reese Chapman is going to be starting in right field. Levi Clark will still be in the lineup, but I mean, even he was in and out of the lineup last season. So this is really his first time being an everyday starter. So, and you know, guys like Henry Ford were starting every day at their previous school, but in terms of solidified roles on last year's Tennessee baseball team, Reese Chapman is the only one. And Tegan Kuhn started a decent amount of games, but he was also in and out of the rotation and didn't pitch at all after he pitched in Hoover. So Reese Chapman's the only one, right? So Ross Kivett kind of
I would consider Manny Marin. He started most days from about midpoint on.
But even I would consider him the front runner at shortstop as we were sitting here recording.
Yeah, different positions, so.
Right. So you don't have a Christian Moore, pencil him in. Blake Burke, pencil him in.
Right. No, you don't have any of that.
Reese is the only one out in right field. So that's why Ross calls this the question mark team. On top of all the questions that come with, hey, how's Josh Elander going to be as a head coach? How's Josh Reynolds going to be as a pitching coach? All the staff questions that they are fielding as well. So I thought that was a great way to put it from Ross. Well, what are you curious to learn about this team or hear about this team leading up to first pitch on February 13th?
Everything that you just mentioned. I mean, you know how I am. I'm question mark every year, right? I want to know what newcomer is pushing somebody for a job. I want to know who's going to get the nod on the weekend spots, and who's going to be first out of the pen, and who's going to be the first kind of person to own the closer type role, or who's going to be the guy who comes in every single game, like the Kirby or the Redmond of the world. But leading up to the season right now, I just want to know how many times can you get outside for this team? Because we have a lot of question marks. The thing that this team is going to have to get comfortable with is literally being on the field with all the changes, right? And it's been cold, so they'll scrimmage as much as they can, but just get comfortable, right? With Elander being the guy you turn to first when practice is over, right? And you got to have a team meeting. It's like you're used to waiting on Vitello to enter the huddle, and now you're waiting on Elander. It's just an interesting dynamic because they had a whole fall with Vitello, and they go into the spring with the change, right? And getting comfortable with the new assistant coach voices that they'll hear, and getting used to the new strength program, which will probably include a conditioning program for pitchers and recovery program. And what do you do post bullpen now? Is that different from what you did with Q? So they just need to be out there, right? And being on the field and getting as much as possible will be good. But you think about the schedule, and you've got a couple tune-ups, let's call it what it is, before you head to Texas in your first kind of big one. I think that's the last week of non-conference. So really, you've got
number 1 UCLA Friday, February 27th.
February 20th. So is that week 3? That's week 3. So you've got
3.
2 series because the first one starts the 13th. So you've got 2.
Yeah, that's against Nichols. I forget who comes week 2. Forgive me.
I forget too. Apologies for not knowing that. We should know it. Towson or somebody.
Is it Northern Kentucky?
They always play them. That's usually a good guess.
Kent State.
Kent State. Close enough.
I do know they played Northern Kentucky, but it's not. It's a midweek game later in the year.
So look, he's gonna rotate the guys those first 2 weeks. Potentially, you're gonna know who kind of has the early clubhouse lead for a job, but guys are gonna get their opportunities, and then it's gonna shake out even further when you get into SEC play and beyond. We say this every year. There will be some guys stick, some guy who probably doesn't even play opening weekend who ends up being a mainstay, right? It's just the way it goes. But for me, I just want to know like who they're going to go with the first weekend of your 3 starters. That won't be what they end with, but that'll be the first 3 guys who get the ball Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I want to see what they do, as far as the infield and the outfield. I think they've got the corners somewhat figured out, like kind of an idea. You mentioned Manny, but they've got some options up the middle, and I really want to see what they do in center and left, assuming Reese will get the nod in right field to begin the season. And so that's what I want to learn. Not a whole lot. I really just want them to get familiarized with themselves and the new dynamic and be outside as much as possible, because they won't get used to it in Anderson indoor training. They need to be on the field, and it's been cold, but they have turf. Get used to the feel of the stadium renovations, all that stuff. That's my main question, is like, how are they gonna get comfortable? Because like you said, a lot of new roles, a lot of new faces. You throw the coaching change on top of it. This team could be one of those teams where they're not playing their best ball until late in the year, which could be a good thing. Or they come out and they punch everybody in the mouth, and it's like Elander's the best, so it could go a lot of different ways. I think question mark team is not a bad thing, but it's an accurate thing.
And it's going to be hard for them to get out this weekend because
Oh, it's brutal.
it looks like it's going to be awful weather. We need this system to keep pushing north. Is what we need to happen. The plan, and what's even more complicated by what you're saying, are the new roster limits, and you don't have as many pitchers that can throw in the preseason for these scrimmages that they would like to have. So they're having to be a little bit more structured, and they're going to do so by essentially doing two scrimmages, if not a third, every weekend leading up to the first pitch. They're essentially doing mock game weeks from here on out, to where they're this week, I believe they're scrimmaging Thursday and Friday, and then, and again, I obviously do not know the exact practice schedule, but it's something along the lines of two scrimmages on the weekends, if not three. Then they'll come back and have like a very um, energized Tuesday practice to kind of simulate a midweek game. Elander said earlier this week at the Big Orange Tip-Off Club that's a day that they're really going to focus on the fundamentals. And then, of course, the other days that they're not scrimmaging or utilizing that Tuesday, they'll have other practices as well. But it almost sounds like because of the roster cut down, you don't have as many pitchers that can throw in scrimmages. So you really got to be careful with the arms that you do have, that they're going to do kind of mock game weeks to adjust for that, or to account for that, I should say. So that will be interesting. And this weekend, hopefully they can get in some scrimmage time. Again, they're going to scrimmage Thursday and Friday, which they should be able to do so. It's just going to be extremely, extremely cold. You mentioned the closer role. That was something that you were curious to learn about. I asked Elander if he would prefer to have that traditional closer, the guy that comes in the ninth inning. And I'm paraphrasing. This is my assessment of the answer he gave me, but it seems like he's open to the idea of having a closer. He referenced Bo Rudy, the Kennesaw State transfer, and how he has what they call an alien fastball, just the way that it kind of comes out. And some of the Will could explain it better than me, but the RPMs and the movement of it aren't your typical fastball. And he has been in a closer type role in the past and has done well in it. So he's open to the closer role idea, and Bo Rudy, probably the leader in the clubhouse to take on that role. But it seems to me like he kind of has this the new wave of thinking of where he mentioned to me, like, if it's the fourth inning and we got ducks on the pond, like that might be the difference in the game right there. So we may need to bring in Camden Sewell or Sean Hunley, that type, whoever that is on this year's team, maybe the Brandon Arvidsson if Arvidsson doesn't start, which I would be surprised if Arvidsson starts the season in the rotation. He's dealing with a little bit of soreness right now, not anything viewed serious, but they're going to bring him along slowly, obviously. So I think that we'll see him coming out of the bullpen to start the season because of that. But if Arvidsson is that Sean Hunley, Camden Sewell, Redmond Walsh type, or if it is Bo Rudy, it almost seems like Josh would prefer to use them in what will feel like the high leverage moment that's going to determine the game. Whether that's in the fourth inning is probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but like if it's the fifth or sixth, or if it's the eighth, then they may deploy their best relief pitcher at that point instead of just old school baseball. We're just going to stick around and wait for the ninth inning, and that's the only inning that pitcher can pitch, which is what we saw with Tony V outside of a couple of guys.
I agree. That's what you got to do at the college level. I mean, in the big leagues, you kind of got to do it. Just keep them to what it is, because it's 162 games, right? It's not that you couldn't bring in Edwin Diaz or your closer in the seventh and be like, hey, go finish it. But then you're messing up the rest of your week. You may play the following 5 days, right? In college, you're trying to get through 3 games. So how can I give myself the best chance to win these 3 games or 2 out of these 3 games? And so that's kind of the thinking there. And like you said, you never know when that high leverage moment's going to be. And with the roster sizes, you can't stash a guy to give you, what if you never have the lead in the ninth? That's kind of the thought. It's like, On the MLB, you're going to have the lead in the ninth a couple times a week, right? If you're middle of the pack. If you're really good, then maybe you got 3 closers like the Dodgers kind of did. Or if you're bad, then you just bring in Mason Miller whenever you can. So things like that. But I agree with the philosophy. I think you let your team, your pitching staff kind of dictate, and it shakes itself out, right? They kind of define their own roles once they get into it, and guys run away with opportunities. So it'd be interesting to see. Arvidsson could definitely be your leverage guy if he doesn't end up starting. I think whatever his role is, it's going to be high leverage, whether it's a couple short ones a weekend or one long one, kind of as like a bridge second starter to whoever he piggybacks, or I don't know. He'd probably end up starting at some point on the weekend rotation if I had to guess, even if he's dealing with soreness maybe later in the year.
It'll depend on whether or not the guys who are starting, whether they handle their business or not. But Elander told me that he is absolutely a guy that he could see starting, but he is also somebody who has a lot of versatility. And that's kind of the theme with the bullpen this year is it's a lot of different looks. It's not all power fastballs. It's righties, lefties, different arm angles, different spin rate, different breaking balls, different fastballs. So that's been a huge point of emphasis is redoing the bullpen because last year they simply did not close out enough games. They lost too many games late because the bullpen was never a consistent strength for them. So that was a point of emphasis with the roster construction this year, and they seem to like what they have on paper, and we'll see if that translates to the games. Would you like to know who I think are the starters as Tennessee begins preseason practice?
I'll play along. Sure, Ben, I would like to know. Tell me.
You want to do pitchers or hitters first?
Do pitchers. We just got done talking about them.
I think your starters as of the start of preseason practice are Tegan Coons, Landon Mack, Evan Blanco, in no particular order. We'll see if they'll sort out who pitches on what day. But I think those are your 3 starters heading in to preseason practice. With your lineup, Stone Lawless catching, Levi Clark at first, Chris Newstrom at second base, maybe Ariel Antigua, Manny Marin at shortstop. But Manny and Ariel do enter preseason in a position battle. So I do believe I'd give the nod to Manny as of today. But Ariel had a strong fall, was doing well. For Ariel, it's just about sustaining consistency. I know that's a big-time coach speak answer or comment, but, I mean, that's truly what it is. Ariel will flash, and then he'll kind of go into a lull. So for him, he's just got to prove it consistently. But I do wonder if he does not win the shortstop job, would he start at second base? And obviously Chris Newstrom would have a say in that. How is Newstrom performing, right? Newstrom and Jay Abernathy are going to work in center and at second base. So those 2 guys are kind of working at both of those spots right now. But I would give the nod to Newstrom at second, Manny at shortstop, and Henry Ford at third base. I think Blaine Brown is your left fielder, though that will also be determined by how much he pitches because he is going to get a true, genuine chance to throw. I mean, it's an upper 90s fastball, big time velo on the fastball. So they're not going to not utilize that. And as I've said before, I think his position in the lineup will just determine how much he is pitching. If it's quite a bit, then I think you'll see him DH quite a bit. And if he is the DH, then I think you'll see Blake Grimmer out in left field. So Blake Grimmer, Blaine Brown are your left fielders. It just depends on how much Brown is pitching, in my opinion. But I would put Brown in left to start, and then Grimmer at DH, and maybe even leading off because of his ability to grind out at bats, especially now that he's playing with more confidence. I think Jay Abernathy's your center fielder, which is the spot I believe he prefers. He signed as a shortstop, and you know how that can go sometimes with egos. Not suggesting that Jay has an ego, because he does not at all, from my understanding. But and as I mentioned a moment ago, he's going to work at second base some as well. But sounds like he prefers to be in center field, and is the leader to be the starting center fielder as of today. And then good old Reese Chapman in right field, who Josh Elander's very bullish on. He's expecting a nice year from Chapman, expecting a nice step forward. Last year was his first year starting in the SEC. Elander believes that now that this will be his second season, he thinks there's going to be a progression there. And if you find more consistent at bats from Chapman throughout the course of SEC play, and he did play great defense last year, threw several runners out, played a great right field. I mean, if you get an improved, not even improved, but a more consistent Reese Chapman at the plate to go along with that defense, I mean, how many teams in the SEC are going to have a better right fielder than Reese Chapman? So that's what I'm looking at right now in terms of the lineup or the rotation. Anything I say that piqued your interest or stood out to you?
Nope. I'm in the same boat.
Well,
in the same boat. Be interesting to see which freshmen push, because I mean you've got Appenzeller. Obviously, he's going to be hard not to give innings to, because his ceiling is so high. Very polished as a freshman.
Had a nice fall too.
Yeah, had a nice fall. And then hitter wise, I think Ethan Moore is probably going to be tough kid to not give some at bats to. Probably some others in there. So like we said, it'll be a lot of in and out early in the year, and probably be a lot of warm and fuzzies for everybody, or at least hopefully. And then you get to Texas and you play UCLA preseason number 1. So
that'd be
you
fun.
find out
And the
a lot.
shortstop, what's his name?
Rock.
Yeah, how do you say his last name?
Kilhowski, Chalowski, something like that.
Mike Wazowski, Rock Wazowski.
Yeah, he's a good player. Really athletic, really good bat to ball, big arm, big speed. He's got tools, and he plays shortstop. That's why he's so highly regarded. Had a really nice year. Struggled in Omaha for him, but he had a big year. So he's the preseason number 1 draft prospect. They're the preseason number 1 team. I think they returned most everybody they had on last year's Omaha team. So UCLA should be good. But, last year's preseason number 1 returned everybody and didn't do so hot.
No, they did not. They did not. So we will see what happens there. Excited to watch that.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, I lost you for a second. You lost connection for a second. Can you hear me now? William.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. At least you can hear me. We're about to get to Ross. Did want to throw in a couple of injury updates before we do get to Ross. The big one being Garrett Wright, the Bowling Green transfer who catches and also plays center field. He is going to be out 3 to 6 weeks because he broke his hamate bone in his left hand, and he's going to need to likely have surgery to have that repaired. So he is not expected back until, again, it's a 3 to 6 week time frame. So 3 weeks, if it's on the short end, could be back by opening weekend, by the season opener, by first pitch, and at minimum, I think they're hoping that he's back by the time that they go to Texas to play at the Texas Ranger Stadium in Arlington. So he'll likely miss the start of the season, but will not be out long term. They're not worried about his long term availability. And then the other two is a pair of freshman pitchers who are ahead of schedule after having Tommy John surgery. That is Will Haas and Jax Bishop. We'll see what comes of it, but given the new roster limits in college baseball and them being ahead of schedule, maybe Tennessee can utilize them towards the end of the season, which initially they thought that they were lost for the season. And they have these procedures back in the spring. last spring. So it's been on the books for a while. Both had the internal brace surgery that is supposed to help with the recovery process and speed up the recovery process. That's what AJ Russell had done. That's what Drew Beam had done. So they are both ahead of schedule and just kind of in wait and see mode to see if they can help at some point this season. But they are young. You could redshirt them. So it'll probably be dependent on what the pitching staff needs, if it needs help or not. But good to hear that those two guys are ahead of schedule. But between those two and Garrett Wright and Arvidsson dealing with a little bit of soreness, I don't want to freak anybody out. That is not my intentions. But being a little bit sore, those are, as of this recording, the only thing that Tennessee is dealing with. So we'll see how that plays out and continue to monitor those situations. But Tennessee, a healthy team as they begin preseason practice. Heflin dropped off because his Wi-Fi went out. Of course, right here at the end, the Wi-Fi lags out. That's our sign that I need to shut up and get to Ross Kivett. So we're going to get to Ross Kivett, the Tennessee baseball assistant coach who had quite the moment in Omaha a couple of years back. And I certainly asked Ross about that moment, and you can hear that on the other side of this quick timeout here on the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. Welcome back into the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. I am Ben McKee, and I am no longer joined by Will Heflin because he has real-world responsibilities to tend to. I think he was just dodging the great Ross Kivett, who now joins us here on the podcast. Ross, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. He should have, because I know where his skeletons are from his 4 years here. 5 years here.
Yes, 5 sounds
5
right.
years here.
Yeah, 5
and he's
years.
Still around doing games. Doing a good job, though, Will.
Doing a great job. He is bummed that he had a meeting pop up this morning when we are recording that he could not miss. So had to miss you, but sounds like he caught a break, so you're not pestering him with PFP pitchers fielding practice, for those who don't know, torturing him with flashbacks to that.
Would have been just like he was playing for us still.
Well, don't worry. I annoy him all the time. Certainly love picking on him about his golf game. Are you a golfer?
No. Once you sign up in this league, you throw the clubs away. I used to be, not anymore. But he's probably good. I'm imagining.
He is really good until he gets on the green. And that's what I like to poke at him about is his putting, because it is lacking. For as much as he plays, it is lacking.
Sure.
And he would tell you that as well. But we'll make sure Will's on here the next time. We'll get you on here because this is your first time, but it's not going to be your last time. So we certainly appreciate you joining us in the madness. Can you believe that first pitch is 3 weeks from Friday?
No, I can't. I like the new rules with the NCAA where you can get in there earlier and start practice. Brand new this year, 2026. So excited that we had the guys back, but you never think you have enough time to prepare the group to be ready in February. So, but also, like you said, first time. But this is my patented, long-time listener, first-time caller. I got a secret account I'm jumping in here on.
Oh, you do? That's good to know. When Ross Volfan 77 pops in and gets on to me for criticizing you and Josh making a pitching change in the 7th inning, or pinch hitting this guy, not pinch hitting that guy. It's Will Heflin always making me say those things. What's that?
Yeah, I just like to know what guys, the message boards, who they want us to recruit out of the portal. That's why I jump on here. I take their advice and I run with it.
You don't have to look on the message board for that. They want anybody and everybody. That's literally it.
I know.
How often are your buddies during portal season, your buddies, friends of the program, how often are they hitting you up like, hey, what do you think about this guy? Don't you think you should go get that guy?
Yeah, since coming back to Tennessee, it's a lot. Hey, what do you think about this guy or this guy? And hey, so and so just tweeted that this guy's in the portal. Have you guys contact him? It's like, can't tell you.
You'll find out when they sign on the dotted line.
Sure.
And we'll turn on their Twitter notifications, or better yet,
Turn
Just
mine
turn
on.
on my Twitter notifications, and you'll know when a commit is about to drop.
I think that's my favorite thing with everybody, whether it be admin or, a friend or someone that's prominent in media, is I make everyone guess now. Like I'll tell you eventually, but you got 2 guesses. So if you guess it, obviously you win a prize. You get to know.
When you press send on the tweet, do you just like set your phone down and just wait for the text messages to come in?
It's funny because my wife jokes. I was like, hey, I'm about to, I'll give an example. But Henry Ford, I'm about to blast, the back call for Henry Ford. And she's like, I thought we were going to watch a show, because, there's some text. But that's good. That means there's excitement, Yeah, they should start texting her because she'll know too. But it just shows the excitement around the program. And, when Danny White talks about a big 3, it is. It really is. People are just as passionate about football recruiting as they are basketball, women's basketball, soccer, baseball. It's awesome. That's why I love working here.
My favorite part of your emoji drops, your emoji tweets, is the hate from other SEC coaches that do not like it.
Best part. That was E right there, who was probably about to jump in and holler about are we going to get a drop, which is a little breaking news here. It could happen here soon. We're hoping so, at least. And I'm not going to say any names, but I want other coaches to send my tweet to their staff and go, who do you think it is?
Ross, you are one of a kind, my friend, in so many ways. One way Tennessee fans know that you are one of a kind is because of your historic moment in Omaha, where you were infamously ejected and threw a binder on the field. I know you get asked about this 1,000 times, but as I told you, can you really do a Ross Kivett interview without asking him about the time he got ejected from a men's College World Series game? So I'll frame it in the sense of, what do you, when you think of that moment, what sticks out to you?
Wow. I mean, what really had the full picture is it should have been Frank is what sticks out to me. He was the one actually causing the ruckus. But I think the funniest part about it is when Frank knew it should have been him, but realized it was me, he tapped me and said, hey, it's you. So get your money's worth. And some good advice from a guy I consider a grandfather figure. And I did. Also, kind of got a job out of it. I was the volunteer back then. It was a little bit different. They didn't have the third assistant. And, I won't speak for Coach Whitting, but I'm sure it didn't hurt just knowing how much fire and passion he has for college baseball and liking guys with similar traits. So I negative is I didn't get to finish the year with the fellas, and we put in so much time, Hef being one of them, and putting so much time into it and getting to Omaha for the first time in 15, 16 years. That was obviously a negative of it, but a ton of positives too. So we're still talking about it, which is great. It's when Tony decided to bring me back when Richard retired. It was pretty much the only tweet that I got tagged in was the what my wife calls the episode.
So I was going to ask you what your wife thought of it. So she deems it as an episode. What'd your wife think of it? What your parents think of it? The immediate family members, what was their reaction?
Yeah, Dad was not surprised. I grew up playing hockey in Cleveland. Mitts were dropped multiple times with buddies on the pond or at a local skate all the time. This one didn't get physical. It got a little bit verbal. My wife figured I'd be the volunteer assistant coach forever because everyone thinks I throw temper tantrums, which partially true, I guess. My mom was just shaking her head like, can't we just stay out of the center of attention for one weekend? And, I think the funniest part is Tony came up and fist pump, like, appreciate you. We're going to get this one and you'll be back. And I appreciated that. And then the police officer that escorted me out was the man. He, hey man, you need anything? And I was like, you know what? My dad just texted me about a 6-pack of Coors Light, and he said, hey, if I find him, I'll bring it in here. But I was obviously just joking. He, that was a really fun experience. The text messages and the tweets were through the roof. And, I hate to say that my coaching career really took off on an ejection, but everyone's story starts somewhere,
Yeah. So did you just watch it in the locker room back in the back underneath the stadium?
Yeah, I watched the game. Yeah, I didn't watch I did on the bus back to the hotel, like the temper tantrum or the ejection, because everyone was tagging me in there. But I went no sound on the TV. I didn't think – I don't know if this was, 5-6 years ago, so I can talk about it now. I thought the plate that they reviewed after I got ejected when Hundley was on the mound, I thought he was out. I didn't think there was enough to overturn that. So I was kind of screaming at the TV there, and obviously, woe is me. See, I was unjustly thrown out, and then we're taking it again on this. But it was a fun moment, man. Like when your adrenaline goes right there, it did feel like you're kind of in a hockey fight. But the reason I was so passionate is I wanted to stay in the game. There was no reason to get ejected. We had just tied it up. We almost blew it way open, but the third baseman made a great play on a Gilbert ball, and the catcher even better play with the scoop. So I think I just wanted to stay in the game, which was why I was upset. Now there's times obviously where head coaches more than assistant coaches will exit in order to get a little bit of a burn from their groups, but we've had the luxury of having groups that create their own motivation or their own fire, so we never really have to do that. I don't remember one time where Tony got ejected to fire the group up. I think that's a compliment to how we recruit and how we train and how we prepare and just the type of kids we have. So,
you curious to see a Josh Elander ejection?
I absolutely am. I don't think it's going to happen. And his office right next door. I hope he hears me. I think it's steady. What you see is what you get every single day, whether it be here at practice or in a meeting or out on the field. So the umpire would have to really mess it up, like probably a rule that was misinterpreted or just an absolutely abysmal call. And they're so good in this league. I highly doubt it'll ever get to that point. Now, if it does, I hope we all have our phones out to record it because that's going to be history.
Yeah, sit back and break out the popcorn. You played
I'm
baseball.
not going out there and getting him. He's too big.
Yeah, yeah. I guess who's being sent out there to get him?
I think it's going to have to be Keegan
Kirby?
gets his legs, and then Grizz and Ricky get the upper body and pull him back in.
Grizz is an underrated. That's an underrated responsibility for Ethan Payne.
Yes, it is
for sure. Although Josh Elander's so tight with his catchers, you could probably just send Stone and Levi, and they'll be able to.
No one that's in the game, Coach.
That's
no
fair.
one that's in the game.
Fair.
We stay on the bench. We follow the rules. If
That's
Mr. Gillier is hearing me, we've watched our video.
Good deal. You've played baseball at a high level, but you grew up playing hockey. Were you? When did the shift to baseball start? Were you a hockey guy first and foremost growing up, or played multiple sports? How did that work for you? Yeah,
mostly hockey. I can't dribble or my jumpers broke. Asked Jay Abernathy and Blaine Brown. We went and shot hoops the other week. I have a broke jumper, so that was never going to work. I don't like running enough to do track like my wife did in college or to play soccer. My foot skills aren't great, but I loved playing hockey. And I like the physicality of it. I like the technique on it, and was decent at a greater Cleveland high school level, midget level. Went to one camp in junior hockey, and it didn't work out. And that's kind of when I knew it was going into my freshman year of high school that I'm not going to be able to play in this junior hockey league like the best players that either go and play college or upper junior and in the NHL, AHL. I'm probably not going to be that guy. Plus, I think my mom's getting sick of going to rinks in the summer. So, I like playing baseball. I have a little bit of hand-eye. I can play defense a little bit. Let's see where this takes us.
So it's about start of your high school.
Yeah, I would say probably my high school days when I realized it wasn't going to be good enough to go beyond, what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I loved playing high school hockey. We won a state championship, a bunch of points, scoring goals in front of, the greater Cleveland crowd. It was awesome. Like an experience I still talk about with the guys is, packed ice rink with 2,000 seats in Brooklyn Heights. It's the best. It reminds me of playing in Hoover on Championship Sunday, and I mean that. I really do. Like, it's the same rush. But I did my 4 years at St. Edward High School, and then moved on to K-State to play the sport I thought probably had the best ceiling of making some real cash in it.
You mentioned your famous Omaha ejection parlayed you into a job at Houston. How do you feel your time at Houston prepared you to come back to Tennessee and fill the roles that you filled with Tony last year and now getting ready for your first year with Josh as a head coach?
Yeah, you don't know if you can do it till you do it. Todd took a chance on me. I'm unbelievably appreciative of Coach Whitting and the people that are at Houston, getting to go out and evaluate, make offers, have the ability to put together classes, to manage what was then 11.7 scholarships, was experience that I was getting here, but just not to the fullest of where you can do it, right? And signing really good portal players and navigating the portal and how that's always growing, and then a junior college player and the contacts that you meet and just putting in the time. And you've heard Josh talk about it, whether it be his press conference or right now in the media. It's like he put the time in. He was at the field 8 to 8, and he's in Jupiter when it's raining on him in the golf cart and sitting next to summer ball coaches and agents and scouts to know where the next player is. And just learning kind of those avenues is something that we're preaching even in our building with young coaches that are trying to get to this level and be in these seats, and they will, because they're you're not everyone's born with the work ethic gene. I feel like you can inherit it, sure, but most good ones are self-motivated, and we have a bunch of guys like that in here, and they want to know. But it's just like any other job, man. Like, who do you know? Who trusts you? Who do you trust? And kind of the part I like is like you willing to take it, you willing to roll the dice, you willing to see a guy one or two times and take a chance instead of maybe a more thorough process. But that's the positives and negatives. If you like that thorough route, well, maybe someone jumps in and rolls the dice and you miss out on the player. I think learning those tactics, the strategies that go behind it, and then just getting into Texas was huge. Just how many players are in there. We have a state that is continuing to grow, and locally we have good players, and it's continuing to grow from youth level all the way through high school. But that state, California, Florida, they've had an advantage, right? Georgia has always been kind of a pipeline for really projectable athletes in our sport. But I think getting some Texas roots was huge too when it comes down to why I took that job. But great people at Houston, super appreciative of how they treated me and my family, and I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that job.
When you think back to the craziness of the fall with everything that happened with the program, what sticks out in your mind?
Man, like I said, how steady Josh was, how our players handled it, how our families handled it. That goes, I won't speak for the Elanders, but Brittany's a real rock. Jacqueline, my wife, is just as steady as it gets, and such a nice soundboard, but also with realism and ready to attack whatever was next. But dude, that's like probably the yearbook answer, and I truly do feel that. But also, man, it's chaos. Like, it's a guy you really care for. It's a guy that you're willing to go into battle with, and he's leaving, and you don't know who's going with. And I think the difference in why Tennessee's so good is we're all really close. Like, it wasn't a fake staff. It wasn't a staff that had to fake chemistry. We all got along. We all liked each other. Our families were close. we're passionate about elevating each other and wanting the best for each other. So yeah, you kind of feel like you lost a brother, but then you have to realize this is a professional job and you got to get to the next task that was on the agenda. And that was, prepping Josh for his meetings and making sure that we have home base covered while he goes and does the interview process. And once he gets it, it's keeping it stable and making sure the recruiting stays stable and making sure the players are able to get to their next work day and have a day that they get better, because you don't get extra days just because your coach left in the fall. So we have to make every day count, because this is a really big time for development, especially the young players. And we have a lot of really talented young players that need those reps. So just getting their headspace clear and getting organized and ready to attack every day, man. It was a lot, but it was kind of awesome. It was kind of, you kind of wake up and, yeah, we talk about routine, especially in this sport. It's a huge routine-based game, but I kind of like the chaos when you wake up and don't know how it's going to go, and your only job is to stay together, hold the line, hold the rope, and let's keep going. And that was the fun part of it. Everything has balance. Everything has balance.
That's exactly where my mind went, was 6'7" when you just read it that way.
AJ Elander taught me it during the
kids,
Santa Claus. We did that Santa Claus parade, and she taught it. But that it really is, man. It was testing out every single thing that you preach as far as mentality and focus and being present. Ooh, it was a challenging time, but it was fun.
How in the world did y'all keep y'all signing class together? Another top 5 class. I believe only one recruit who truly flipped his commitment to another school. I believe y'all only lost one player. I mean, how in the world did you and Josh and the rest of the staff were able to do that amidst all that chaos?
Relationships, the relationships that were built prior. And like I said, we were all so close. It's not like the relationship is just Tony or just Frank or just Q. Or even just Josh or myself. Like it's a full bore. When we recruit, we want you to feel like you are committing to the University of Tennessee, and it's the greatest place on earth. And not one person will decipher if this place is great. I joke around and say I'm really glad Josh is at the helm, because I want to, walk out in front of this $100 million stadium. I feel like we earned it, but in this game and professional sports or in college sports now, like, you're only guaranteed the day that you have. And when we utilized every day to continue the relationships with those players and their families, and jumped on Zooms and phone calls. And, there's schools that are, trying to get in touch with them, which they should be. Like, that's part of how this works. But they stayed strong and they listened to our message and they believe in it still, and they held on. But I'll give the university credit. A lot of it is because of what this place means to them, not just what one person means to them.
What's the Cliff Notes version of the signing class in terms of what you like about what you all were able to accomplish? And I imagine this was a harder year to navigate than in the past because of the new roster limits and kind of deciding how many guys to take at this position, at that position. That had to have been somewhat – I know y'all have always done that in a sense, but I guess maybe even have to be more strict about it this time around because of that dead set number.
Yeah, I think that just the testament to how organized Josh is. We were prepared for this. He had us ready for this number going into August. So when this happened, it didn't really affect our roster management that much. We've had a couple of things get added, and then obviously a subtraction too, but it's balanced out. I really enjoy this 26 class. I don't know, nor do I really care where it's ranked. But it's talent, and there's top of the charts talent. And I would say our bottom guy, because that's, everyone judges off your bottom guy, is just as good as maybe anyone in the class. Specifically on the mound, it's a bunch of real dudes that we're going to have to sweat it out during the draft. But if they make it, they know that the expectation is they're coming in and going to compete for innings, which is, man, that's awesome. You want to do it homegrown. We've done it like that the whole time. And, keeping them on board, and then now going through their process as they go through their spring and then their draft process. And then when they come into the summer, and that's where they make their real money, is how do I elevate my game when I get here in July and then when I start school in August.
A couple more for you, and I'll get you out of here.
No, you're good.
What excites you about this year's team as first pitch is rapidly approaching? I believe y'all are going to begin scrimmages this week if the weather cooperates. Just what really excites you about this group?
I'm glad you asked, because this is going to be a weird answer, I think. This is probably the first time in, what do you think, Ben, 4 or 5 years where everyone's going, what is it? What is it? How is it going to be? There's question marks. Because the last 3 years, everyone's like, oh, you got this guy, you got Dryland, you got this guy, you got.
Yep, I'd say the first time since from the outside, probably 2021, because I don't think people realize how good that 2020 group was and was going to be if the season doesn't get canceled. But 2020, 2021, last time there were this many questions, maybe.
The question mark team, I call them, because everyone wants to ask a bunch of questions, and that's not a slight. I'm just saying, like, who's Fisher, Keelan, Curley? They're all gone. Who's on your infield? How's Manny Marin going to bounce? Who's on the mound? You lose Liam Doyle. You lose Franklin. You lose Russell, Marcus, etc. The question mark team. So there's nothing more fun than answering questions. And I think that's what excites me the most, is to watch them do that. Because it's always been about the players, and it always will be. And at the end of the day, we're still playing the same game. They were recruited the same way, and everything that was being spoken about prior to October all of a sudden had gone away, and now there's question marks. Well, nothing's changed in this locker room. Maybe the guy that's writing the lineups, but he's been here for a decade too. So I think that's what I'm most excited about is watching them answer some questions.
In terms of how you all navigated the portal, Josh has said a couple of times publicly that you all wanted to tweak the bullpen, make some changes in the bullpen. What exactly do those changes look like? What will be different about the bullpen this season, you think?
Oh, you kind of answered it. Everything's going to be different, and it's changing where your eyes are going to be. It's different looks, it's different analytics, it's different pitch types, it's sinker, it's ride, it's slider, it's under, Frederick coming from down under, it's lefty, it's righty, it's young, it's old. It's a crazy combo of it's just really difficult to prepare for our staff. Is it as deep as it's ever been? I don't know. They're going to determine that starting February 13th, but I do like that. If you need a sinker guy, you got one. If you need a subby guy that needs to come in and strike a guy out or get a ground ball, you have one. You need a guy that can ride at the top of the zone. You need the 96 here comes guy. I mean, you have that too. I just, I'm bullish on availability, and knock on wood, it's been that. So guys that have proven it, and whether it be in a Power 4 or a lesser league, and I don't mean lesser as far as talent. I mean lesser as far as what, the college football playoff thinks about you. That's what I mean. And I think these guys they're determined to prove that they belong, which I like too.
Elander moved into V's office. Did you move into Elander's office?
No, I'm in the conference room still until they build the new one. I like I call it the playpen. I like it when people come in here, as you noticed a couple of times early. They're used to coming in here and talking smack, and I'll have the Cleveland radio on the TV because they do a YouTube deal now, so we'll all get caught up on the Browns coaching search, and we'll look at the whiteboard and keep putting names on it for the younger classes, and then try to get the guys that are on the left side of it admitted into school and doing their stuff so they can focus on their spring season.
I think you need to put on some Pittsburgh radio. Listen to.
I figured you'd say that.
The Steelers coaching search.
I'm nervous about it. I'm glad you didn't get Salah, because I think he's a monster. But shout out to our Tennessee Titan fans and faithful. They got a good one. I think that's a good grab. That's who I wanted the Browns to get.
I'm hoping for Sean McDermott.
Yeah, I mean, now everybody is, right? He's an absolute – I mean, he's the definition of leader of men. So, you know, I get what the Bills are doing. Sure, 9 years they make a Super Bowl, but if you told me the guy went to 2 AFC titles, 4 division titles, and 6 wild card on the Browns, sign me up for that.
And as everybody pointed out yesterday, you watched the Bills over the weekend, and it seemed more like a roster issue than a coaching issue.
Completely agree. As a guy that has some say in roster construction, I don't ever like to abuse guys that put rosters together. But, yes, they're making a lot of money, and they have free agency, which we don't. So, yes, you're right.
What do you mean y'all don't have free agency, Ross? Come on now.
Technically, we don't.
I hear you. Well, we greatly appreciate you joining us today, and we'll get you back on here and maybe check in with you before conference play begins.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Jump on whenever you need someone to eat 45 minutes. Obviously, being talkative isn't my downside, but sometimes talking too much. But let's do it when Hef's on, and we can reminisce on some of the good old days, and then maybe we'll get you some breaking news.
Yeah, absolutely. And you fit right in because Will and I also like to talk. Especially
yeah, I like it.
So we could go on for probably 3 hours if we wanted to, but greatly appreciate your time, Ross.
Yep, no problem. Appreciate you, Ben. Talk to you soon.